Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and today we're going to go over the magic number for you for achieving financial independence. Now, if you're like a typical American, you're probably dissuaded right now that you'll ever be able to retire. There's a lot of folks out there, 60% plus, who don't think they're going to be able to hit their retirement goal and retire when they think they're going to be able to retire or retire at all. In fact, the younger generations pretty much have written off this idea of ever retiring. They think they're going to work forever. Now, what's the truth, and how should we be looking at this differently so that perhaps we could give some hope and some positivity to the idea of retiring when you want to retire? And I'm just going to change the way that you think. Now, but before we do that, I want to give you some numbers. As of December of 2024, and we're sitting in 2025, as of December of last year, the average net worth of a household is a little over $1 million. The median net worth is $192,900. Now, what are the differences between those? So I'm just going to write this. This is called the average, and this is the median. And why is that important? This is where it gets funny, because there are studies that show that in order to retire and retire wealthy, people believe you need to have $2.5 million to retire comfortably. Just think about that for a second. 2.5 million is what it takes to be wealthy. And I'm just going to say, quit looking at these numbers. Now, before I go over and give you a different way to approach your magic number, I'm going to discuss what these are. Now, first off, what is net worth? Net worth, very simply, equals your assets minus your liabilities. Liabilities. Let's see if I can write it right. Right. All that means is if I have a house and a bunch of furniture and some cars and they're worth $2 million, and I have a mortgage on my house, a car loan, everything else, and it all totals up to $1 million, my net worth is $1 million, right? And people equate that somehow, some ways, hey, you're a millionaire, and now you're going to be financially free. It doesn't work that way, guys. It always comes down to cash flow. Before I get there, let me keep digging into these. So the average is, let's say that there's 4 people. 1, 2, 3, 4. Person 1 has $100,000. Person 2 has $100,000. Person 3 has $100,000. And person 4, let's see if I can make these numbers add up right. Let's say that person 4, what should we have? They should have $3.7 million. So we add those up, and we end up with $4 million, right? I think that's what those numbers are. So the average net worth is $1 million. But the median is, where's the 50th percentile? The median under this example is $100,000. The median is where's the middle, not the average, because the average could be thrown off by Richie Rich over there who has a whole bunch of money, and everybody else, and then just expand that over hundreds and thousands of people, where you have a lot of folks that aren't 100,000, they're 10,000, right? And then the average says $1 million, oh, we're doing great. Not doing so hot, right? That number can get screwed up, especially when you have billionaires out there warping it, right? The average isn't so great. So the median, whoa, 200,000, and most people think you got to have 2.5 million. So what does that tell us? It means that it's going to seem hopeless. And this is why I want you to think of things differently. Instead of looking at your net worth like that, what I like to do is say, here's your income, here's your expenses on a monthly basis. Let's just say we put these each in a box. We'll just say monthly. What I care about is this number, what I live off of. And then what I care about is building up 2 more boxes, assets and liabilities. What I care about is having assets that create income that cover those expenses. So if I can live off of, let's say, 70% of my income and move 30% down here, then I'm counting how much income could be generated off of those assets. Eventually, if I have enough money coming off those assets, I don't have to worry about working anymore. So it really does become a component of how much do I need to live comfortably. Let's just say that in my case, my number is 10,000. That's the world's worst writing. 10,000. Then what I care about is having assets that create passive income of $10,000. Once I do that, I don't have to have income anymore. I don't have to work. When I say income, I mean sweat of your brow. You're having to work to create income. I don't want to have to work when I'm retired, right? I want to be able to do what I want to do. A lot of people, at the end of the day, they don't do this type of analysis, and instead they say, how much am I worth? They may have a $3 million house with a $1.5 million liability on it, and they think, I'm worth $1.5 million, I can retire. And you're like, well, that $3 million house is going to take 5% to cover. Like, you're going to have insurance for it, you're going to have to pay the property taxes, you're going to have to pay repairs, you're going to have all these expenses associated with that house. How the heck are you going to keep up with that house if you quit working? Well, I got a pension and I got my Social Security. Okay, how much is that going to bring in? And it's not enough to cover that big fat liability, which is their house, which is why I never call a house an asset. Personally, I look at personal houses and cars and things like that as liabilities. And some of you guys can scream all you want. I call an asset something that produces income on a monthly basis. A liability is something that takes money out, and that's how I define what an asset is. Is it creating income? So like, even if you have rental properties, if they're creating negative cash flow, it's a liability. So you just want to make sure that you're carefully looking at those liabilities so they don't drag you under. Your credit card bills, your mortgages, and your car loans creep you and will take you down and really cause you pain. We want to concentrate on these guys. Dividend-producing stocks, writing covered calls, short-term notes, real estate, whether it be duplexes, single-family, pad split, multifamily, whatever the case, you want things that produce income. So if I know that I need to produce $10,000 a month in income, then I'm going to be looking at assets that create that. Hey, can I find something that creates that type of income? Maybe I am quite literally 10 rental properties away from being retired. And I know some of you guys are going to say, well, $2.5 million, see, it's going to cost you that much. No, you could buy rental properties. If I looked at my basis, what I actually paid for a lot of my properties, it's $100,000 less. When we were having our big financial crisis in Las Vegas, you pick up houses for 40, 50 grand. Indianapolis, up until a few years ago, you could pick them up for less than 100. Now they're 100, 150, 200. Kansas City, Missouri, you could still pick up houses inexpensively. All of those are available. And by the way, if you want to learn how to buy these types of houses, Infinity Investing will teach you how. If you go down in the comments below and type in free book, I will send you a link to where you can download the book, Infinity Investing. I wrote it several years ago. It works like a charm. But our community does cash flow properties. We have over 4,000 in our group that we manage with our partner Alpine Capital, and it's turnkey properties. So it's just a different way of thinking. So type in free book down below and I'll send you a link. It's absolutely free. It was a gold medal winning book. It was a bestseller on Amazon. Continues to be. Just go. If you want it for free, just type in free book down below. I'll also put a link up in the show notes. But what we care about is building up an asset base that produces enough income. If you start doing it now, you might be shocked at how inexpensive it is over time to actually build that up. So a lot of times we are in the idea that what we buy today is stuck in today's prices, and that's not the case. So if I am trying to replace $10,000 of expenses, that's a moving target. I need something that's going to adjust with inflation for me, which is why I buy companies that produce dividends. They're paying out their profits on a regular basis so I can actually use that money to pay my expenses. It doesn't do me any good if NVIDIA runs up a whole bunch of money if I can't get access to it. How do I get access to it? I'm going to have to sell it or borrow against it, right? But I want companies that pay me. I'm okay if the stock price doesn't fly because they're paying out to the shareholders a consistent dividend. And by the way, there are companies that have been paying increasing dividends. In other words, every year, year after year, they increase the amount they pay out for over 50 years. They're called dividend kings. 25 years are called aristocrats, right? There are companies out there like 3M, Procter & Gamble, and a bunch of others that have been Coca-Cola for like 57 years, Federal Realty Trust, a whole bunch of these have been paying out increasing dividends over a period of time. And then you can you add a compounder like a covered call, and you start looking at your asset base differently. I no longer care what it's worth. I care what it's creating. What your magic number then becomes this guy. What do I need to live off of? What are the income streams that I have? I use 5. I do rents, royalties, dividends, interest, and short-term capital gains from the sale of options. I use covered call as an income source. Those are passive income sources in my book that are called infinity income sources that I can rely on month after month to cover my expenses. That's what I care about. What's not in there is W-2 income. I don't even look at retirement income. Now, you could factor that in if you have retirement income that's coming in from a pension of some sort. Otherwise, I'm looking at the income that's being produced off of your IRA or your 401k and calculating them that way. But if you have an income stream, let's say I have Social Security. Hey, I know I'm going to get paid this. Hopefully it doesn't go bankrupt, but you should. Government, its balance sheet, they can either borrow money or they can print it. So they're always going to be able to pay these things. If I have money coming in, then I can calculate. I can just reverse engineer it. Hey, I have $2,000 a month coming in off my pension, so I have $8,000 that I need to make up. So I need enough assets that create $8,000. Then you could attack that. And what happens is over time, your basis in that income, hey, wow, I bought houses 10 years ago. They were a lot cheaper than they are today. They're producing more in rents. And it's attacking my expenses. And generally speaking, I'm just going to say this in my experience, so this is completely biased. Most people are about 7 properties away, owned outright, from being able to retire, having enough cash flow coming in to where they could actually retire because they have other income sources. We oftentimes discount it, but you're looking at your Social Security, and sometimes you have other things that you're making on the side. Maybe you're still working because you like to putter around. But a lot of times we need less than we actually realize. But we're still shooting for it. That's our magic number. And 7 houses, and the next thing you know, wait a second, I have cash flow coming in every month that covers my expenses. I'm not burning down my asset base. In fact, it's continuing to grow because I have not only the cash flow, I also have appreciation. How do you access the appreciation? Well, you know what you can do. You can lever if you need to. So I prefer to buy assets cash, but some people, they buy a house, buy it for $100,000, and I'll give you a real life example. I bought a house here in Vegas for 60, 70 grand, sold it for 300. What could I do? I could borrow against that. I could use that to go buy another property and then allow that property to pay that off. Let's say I aggressively pay that off in 15 years. And now 15 years later, I have 2 properties. I only bought one, right? I only put my money from here into one, and then the property bought its sister, through the rents and paid down that mortgage. And now I have 2 properties free and clear, creating cash flow that attack my expenses. So the moral of this story, what I want you to understand, is that it's not like whatever the price is today and you factor that in. Understand that you're compounding, you're making appreciation, and you have cash flow on infinity types of assets. So again, so when we're looking at rents, royalties, dividends, interest, short-term capital gains, let's say I'm buying stock. Not only is the stock producing a dividend, not only am I producing option income off it, but it's also appreciating. All of those things will attack this over time and allow me to compound so that I can get to that goal earlier. Now, you know what I'm not saying? A dollar amount that you have to have in your account. Because I've seen people build small portfolios where their average income or average amount that they spent on houses was $50,000 and below, and they'll end up with 10, 20 houses that are all producing $1,000 a month in income. Or they'll buy a house and they'll start renting out the rooms in the house. I'll give you a real life example. I have a house that I spent less than $20,000 on. It produces $2,000 a month in cash flow. That's not a misstatement. It's pad split, it's 4 rooms, they each rent for $175 a week, and it produces great cash flow as a result. Yes. So when you say, well, but you need $2 million, well, wait a second. I could end up retiring pretty easily off of 5 or 6 of those. What did it cost me? If I'm getting them for 20 grand, and let's just say that I had to put double that. It's 40 grand. All right, and I get 6 of those. That's less than $250,000, right? 10% of that. And I have cash flow covering my expenses. And I still have me. I can still go out there and do stuff that I want if I want to make money. Maybe I'm consulting on the side. Maybe I start a small business, which you all should, have a family business. All of that stuff, and we're attacking that magic number. I hope it gives you guys a little bit of hope. And like I said earlier, if you want a free copy of Infinity Investing so you can learn how this stuff works, just put it down below. It's going to change the way you look at these things, and we're going to quit looking at this garbage, which makes us compare ourselves to everybody else. You shouldn't be comparing yourself to anybody else other than what's your number. I put 10 grand. Some of you guys, it might be 20. Some of you guys, it might be 3,000. You might be saying, I don't need to live large. I'm happy with the vehicle I drive as long as I have a vehicle that's usable. I like to do this. I like to do other things. Maybe you like to travel or whatnot. And you could live pretty cheap. Your number's going to be way easier to hit. I've had folks that were 21-year-old hit their infinity number, which means that they had enough assets covering their expenses. And I said, don't go backwards. It's all you have to do. From here on out, anything that you want to add on to your life, just make sure you're buying more assets. They were taking 100% of their income practically and dumping it into assets. That's a great situation to be in, guys. And anybody can do it. It's not that difficult once you start focusing on the right thing. So what's your magic number? I don't know. Read Infinity Investing. You take a look at some of the resources that you'll have access to, some of the spreadsheets and things like that. You can do your Infinity Net Worth, and you can start reverse calculating. Wait a second. If I do this over this period of time, whoa, I could be retired in 6 or 7 years. Yep. All it takes is a little bit of will and a little bit of knowledge, and you'd be shocked at where you can get. So the rest of the folks, the 60% that are losing hope, send them this way. We'll give them some hope, and they'll realize that it's not as bleak as what they think, and anybody can do it. So that's the magic number. Hopefully you guys realize that when you start looking at these things slightly differently, maybe it's going to make you feel a little bit better and give you a little bit of hope for the future that you'll be able to hit your infinity number and hit that magic number a little bit easier than you thought. Good luck.